I'm going to be doing a reaction to the video by Dr. Paul Enechi. I believe that's the name of the preacher who's shown on your screen right now. This has been described as his formal response to the recent passing of the wonderful singer Osinachi. I do not know much about her, but I love the song so much. I heard it, I think, 2 years ago or so. I was in the lowest point in my life at that time. One of the lowest points anyway, and I was at Ikeja near the underbridge area trying to get to a cyber cafe on a Sunday morning. It was a terrible day for me. Things were really bad, and her song, I'm not a religious person, so but the song, it was so soulful, and I said, who is this person singing this song? I had to ask questions, and that was when I discovered her. But I didn't really follow her. I just loved the song so much, and what has happened to her is something that touched me very deeply. It should touch every decent-minded human being. But what annoys me the most is the fact that people knew and still let us stay on suffering, despite all the awareness that's been created today, especially to protect women who are on the receiving end of abuse and violence. So this is the reason why I'm doing this response, because I am not at all satisfied with the responses that have been given by the people in the church generally. Not all of them, of course, there are exceptions. There are people who belong to the church movement who have spoken honestly and with integrity, but there are some people who are once again trying to use religion as a cover to avoid being direct and taking responsibility for their shortcomings. So it's time for us to set things right. It's time for us to begin to tell each other the truth. So that's why I'm doing this. So this is not designed to be an attack on the church movement. The fact that I did not go to church does not mean that I'm going to be negative, but I'm going to be calling out individuals that I find are in a position of influence. If they do not speak with integrity and do not take responsibility, and then you see, when you take responsibility, that's when you can effect a change and ensure that this kind of thing does not happen or does not continue to happen. Because it is fact that in the church movement there's a lot of this happening, and people are being told to stay in those relationships, and it is wrong. I'm a personal example of it, and I don't want to bring mine into this now. I'm just going to talk about this lady and what this preacher has said. All right, so I'm going to play the video and I'm going to respond to different sections of it. All right, I haven't even listened to it in full, to be honest. It's just that the few, I think about 1 or 2 minutes I listened to it, I was just incensed, and not in a negative sense. The point is, if he does not know, then somebody needs to tell him. Okay, so listen, and hopefully you will find value in this. Like I said, this is not designed to be an attack. We must learn to tell each other the truth. Sometimes we just need to correct one another, and if I see the truth, if I know the truth, it behoves of me to tell the person that needs to hear the truth that truth. Then I would have done my job. If after that people still continue to behave as if they are unaware of the truth, then that will be their own. It will be up to them. They'll be the one that will be guilty of wrong at that point in time. Let's assume he didn't know. Now we're going to tell him. I am going to tell him, and I know other people have posted something along the lines of the stuff I'm going to say, but I'm going to be much more how do I put it, elaborate in what I'm going to say. All right, I hope I haven't said too much, but let's get started.
We bring you greetings in Jesus' name.
We are in a season that calls for sober reflection in the light of the passing of our beloved sister Osinachi, who is a kingdom asset and a generational asset to this generation. In the light of so much misinformation, in the light of so much misconstruction of events, I decided to set straight what I know concerning the situation. Over 2.5 months to 3 months ago, she came to see me with her husband with complaints of chest pain, respiratory distress. I prayed for her and prayed again. And when the symptoms did not abate, I counseled that they go to the hospital to help us to know exactly what we were dealing with.
Okay, I stop here first time. Now, this is commendable. I have heard of other preachers who will just tell the member, oh, don't worry, the Lord will take control. So this is commendable. What he did there was okay, and I know that it's the right thing for any sound thinking person to do. So this is well, so I'm just acknowledging him. He did right, and the process he describes here, I don't want to spend too much time on it. He talks about how they went from consultant to consultant, all of that. I'm okay with that, and it's quite in order. He did a great job in this regard, channeling them towards the right professionals and all that to get the best possible guidance. So I'm going to skip a bit.
What exactly happened? I am calling names and calling places because the people are available, are live, and they're all verifiable. And then they continue.
So you notice I've skipped now. I've skipped right on to about the end of where he was describing all he had done for them in terms of guiding them towards the right medical professionals. So I've skipped up to that point because I know that's like valid thing he did. So there's no need for us to dwell on that. I wanted to get to the meat of the issue. So let's go on.
The histology was done. From what I saw at that time, the picture was much milder than what the CT scan earlier on showed, and so we felt very happy that at least there was relief. She called me daily, and we literally daily, and prayed with her. She reported progress. The point came where she needed no oxygen anymore, according to what she said to me one night, and that they checked her oxygen perfusion, and it was 100%. And we were very, very excited at that progress. That was the point it was before we went over to the crusade in Cameroon. It was in Cameroon the second night that I got to know of the unfortunate incidents of her passing. Now, if there was domestic violence that led to or coincided with those symptoms that she came with 2.5 months to 3 months ago, there is no way I would know. And if there had been perennial domestic violence, there was no way I
all right, so this is the first big fat issue I have with his response. It's completely unacceptable. Let me tell you why. If you are a church going person here, you know that spirituality is supposed to be the look, religion was created by human beings to enable themselves build up their spirituality and maintain it. It wasn't the other way around. Spirituality is not created for religion. Religion is a subset of spirituality. It helps you to become more, it is supposed to help you to become more spiritual. Now, this is a preacher of his congregation is not a small one. This is a man that gives spiritual leadership to a body of people that call themselves the children of God. Therefore, he is a man of God. This is the God that people come to him to pray to. For instance, the woman we're talking about in question came to Dr. Paul to ask for prayers. He prayed. This is a man that is supposed to have the ears of God. When he speaks, we are supposed to believe he knows the mind of God. We are supposed to accept his guidance because we believe he's a messenger of the Creator. How can that person say he has no spiritual eyes to see? Somebody posted a comment in response to the sharing of this video by a friend of mine on Facebook. He is based in the UK, and the lady, I do not know where she's based, but she posted something along the lines of what I'm saying now, and I wasn't surprised that there were people who thought the way I did, because it's I mean, it's a no-brainer. Everybody knows Christianity is about spirituality. These are people that tell you that the Spirit ministered to me, the Spirit told me. In the Bible, Jesus Christ many times demonstrated an ability to see beyond the physical, to perceive insincerity with the Pharisees. He demonstrated that in identifying Judas, in telling was it Peter that he was going to deny him. Look, in every area of life in the Bible, or Jesus Christ's life in the Bible, it is clear that he was a person who was not just an ordinary person. By virtue of the powers he had, he could see beyond the ordinary. He perceived stuff that the average human being could not see. Now, those who were his followers also demonstrated such abilities. That was why they were able to perform those kinds of miracles they did. Now, in this day and time that we're in, we are told by the church that the miracles are still there. The power of the living God is still within them. And then suddenly we're being told there was no way I could have known that a member so close to me, for whom I did one-on-one prayers, I could not pick in the spirit the kind of suffering she was going through. Not just at that point in time or recently, but as far back as years before. Somebody is in your congregation that close to you, so impactful in her contribution to your ministry, and your spirit did not minister to you that person was going through such hardship right under your nose. Not just that, your members of your congregation, people in the choir, other people, they knew about it and you did not pick it up from them. I'm going to come to that, but first of all I want to talk about him and his spirituality. I believe he needs to take a good look at himself and be honest with them. He needs to go with himself, he needs to go and do some deep reflection and be honest with himself about where he is spiritually. No, I put a question mark on that. Look, that's just one. Anyway, let me go on. I'm going to come back to something else.
The things we're hearing after her passing were things that were very, very strange.
When he says there was no way I would have known, then he should never try to preach to anybody again. He should never try to preach to anybody to become a believer again, because then suddenly he's saying that he's just a mere mortal. He's no longer connected to the Creator. He cannot therefore claim that he can and draw on the powers given to him by the Creator to do signs and wonders. These are the same people that tell you should believe that when you become one of them, the 10,000 shall fall on your right. Look, they tell you all these flowery things. Then suddenly, now he's telling us there was no way I would have known. Is he speaking as a man of God, or is speaking as just an ordinary mere mortal human being? He suddenly no longer has all those abilities. That's so convenient. Continue.
Then I began to ask questions. First, I asked the twin sister, are you aware that your sister, were you aware that your sister passed through all these things? She said yes, she knew some of them, but that the majority of them she was hearing also from those she confided in. I asked her, I said, if you knew, why didn't you let us know? And the twin sister said she always begged her, please don't let the church know, don't tell the pastor, please, the man will change, please, just pray for us.
If you knew, why didn't you let us know? You are a man of God. This is your domain. These are members of your congregation. If you are in the spirit and you immerse yourself in connecting with the Creator, you will pick up the vibes. Those of us who are not even church goers, I practice what you call ancient African spirituality. I perceive insincerity. I perceive there are ways you will interact with certain people. You will pick up some vibes. We are spiritual beings as human beings. Actually, we are spiritual. It just depends on how each person develops himself. There's no way you will not pick it up. And I tell you, I'm going to come to another issue which has to do more with his leadership style. And I'm going to really hammer on that, because there's something the church is doing that now proves that they're just doing it it's just a surface thing. They're not actually building people up in terms of leadership abilities. I'll get to that, but I want to just run through the rest of what he's saying.
I asked the first son yesterday, I said, was this real? And the son told other stories. And I said, so why didn't you tell me? Because typically they will run to me after service and I'll pray for them, lay hands on them. Why didn't you tell me about what was going on in the home? And the young man said they couldn't tell me because the father would always ask them after they left me and said, what did you tell me? Pastor? Did you tell him anything?
I pick up on that. I will pray for them. I will lay hands on them. When you lay hands on a person, what we have seen repeatedly over the decades from preachers is that, look, it's just like when Jesus Christ will lay hand on somebody. Come on. That is what we're told in the Bible. So do we now begin to question what you are telling us about the Bible? Like I said, I'm not religious, so I'm not a member of the movement, but I'm just saying, because if a member realizes that all the things you guys have been preaching, you are unable to manifest it in the real life when it comes to saving them from trouble. Let's assume somebody has kidnapped one member of their family and is holding the person at gunpoint and said, go to church and present as if everything's okay, then come back in the evening and then come and give us the money we've asked for. And the person comes to church and say, pastor, lay hand on me, pray on me, and you cannot perceive in your spirit that that person is disturbed, that there's something that's not right, and you cannot pick up and say, sister, sit down, can I talk to you? What is the problem? That is what a man, a truly spiritual man should be to a woman can do. And there are people who have that ability, because you build yourself up in that regard. You will pick it up. You will pick it up. Very, very often you will pick it up. You cannot stay for somebody for years and the person will go through that kind of suffering and you do not pick it up. Like I said, there's an aspect that has to do with the running of the organization of the church, and I'm going to talk about that on the physical realm, but I'm talking about the spirituality now. If we are to believe all this gospel, all this talk about the powers that a person who is a born-again Christian will have, this is negating all of that now. You are telling us you are just like an ordinary human being, so you couldn't have picked, and yet you are laying hands. Why are you laying hands? Because when you lay hands, it should even tell you. You should feel it. So something is wrong here. And if I'm the only one saying that's too bad, but I'm going to say it anyway, because we don't know who is going to be next time. And therefore it's time for people to deeply reflect and introspect. It's time for people to make a change. If you've been doing superficial worship, it's time for you to get deeper, because this should not happen in a place where God is supposed to be ruling. It shouldn't happen for this kind of wickedness to have continued for so long right under your noses. Oh, no, there's no excuse whatsoever for it. Let's go on.
For other members in the choir who were privy to this, some of the things that were going on, I asked one of them when we paid the visit to the house of the deceased yesterday, what happened? Why were we not aware of all these things? The same story, that she would always go on her knees and ask them, please don't just pray, don't.
Right, so before I get to the issue of leadership, I still want to point out something now. Please, you notice consistently all the people he had asked, they knew about it, they never told him. All right, and she will always plead. So there are two things I want to bring out here. First of all, the people that she was telling, you see, this is supposed to be a church, according to, he's going to say it in some moments. I remember he said something like that it's a church where they've said you don't have to die in marriage, blah blah blah. They've been told you the marriage is not whatever. So they've been preaching that. Yet are we to believe that the members heard all those things, all those warnings, and still did not follow those warnings? Because they were being told by their mother, by their friend and all that in the church, that I'm being beaten up by my husband, but please don't tell the pastor. But they knew what the pastor had said, what the rule of the church, what the principle laid down by the church was, that look, you do not have to accept to live in suffering and pain and anguish and all of that. And yet none of them felt moved enough to go and tell the pastor. And pastor, she says I shouldn't tell you, but I know I must tell you, because this could lead to her death. At what point do people realize that they need to take action irrespective of what the person who is in it is saying? Because sometimes when you are in an abusive situation, you get so blinded that you are not able to think rationally, even to protect yourself. And I'm talking as a person who is a survivor of abuse. 20 years I was in a relationship, and for over 13 years of that relationship I was going through all kinds of psychological, physical and verbal and emotional abuse. And of course it wasn't the same thing as hers, but believe me, I sustained multiple injuries. There was never a mark on the woman that was inflicting abuse on me, and I kept thinking that it was best for me to try and stay around and try to change her, and later try to protect the kids and all of that, rather than think of my own well-being. So this woman was even worse off than me, many times worse off than me. And point I'm making is that she was there telling them all this, even though she was a member of a church where, according to the preacher, they had been told you do not have to live like this, you do not have to accept this, and yet they did not believe they needed to actually act on that warning that he had given them. So he had passed instruction according to him. The church members knew it, that was the philosophy of the church. Then why were they willing to continue like that? Why was she so intent on telling the others not to tell the pastor? And why were the others willing to accept that they should do that for her, rather than help her to get relief by reporting to the pastor, so the pastor could take action to intervene? Is there something there where the church is preaching something officially, but there's a kind of unspoken rule where you know that you're not expected to take action along those lines. In other words, they say don't have to endure all this thing, but everybody will frown on you and look at you funny if you decide to say, no, I'm not continuing with this relationship anymore. They'll say, you're embarrassing the house of God. Maybe that's it. Maybe she knew that if she did it, she was going to she was going to become an outcast or something like that, discriminated against. Who knows? Because we've read stories by other ladies who said that when they chose to separate from their spouses, the church members literally just put them aside. They were just excommunicated, more or less, in quotes. So maybe that was what she was afraid of. She did not want to fall from the position of favor that she had in the eyes of people. She knew she was highly revered and all that because of her singing prowess, and she did not want to lose the respect of so many people. Maybe that was why she didn't want it to become an official thing, because she knew that not everybody would know the true story and understand why it was necessary for her to separate from an abusive husband. So she was trying to preserve what she felt was valuable to her, which was the reputation she had within the church family. That was why. And then the other people who too, nobody wanted to be the one. There's a saying in Yoruba language, I'm not going to be the one that will go and tell people that the mother of the teacher died. Let it not be from me that people will hear this kind of thing. People will say, why am I saying it? And everybody will now condemn me. So nobody wanted to expose him or herself to the criticism, and so everybody chose to keep quiet. And that's a game that people play when they're in what is more like a cult-like environment. So the question to ask is, did this church build a psychological environment that was cult-like, where people did not feel they could differ and actually act along the lines of the difference they felt? These are the issues, and I am raising them. I'm not saying we're raising them. I am raising them because this kind of thing should never happen. This lady, I still listened to her song yesterday. It's amazing the vocal power she possessed. That woman could have died like that is just so crazy to me. Apart from the fact that she must have been a decent human being too. It's very sad that could happen right under the noses of those that were supposed to be her own family in worship of the Creator. So for me, what this man is saying, unacceptable. Again, like I said, but he says his church never condoned that, and yet the members were willing to go along with the woman. The woman herself was preaching that pleading based on that to her friend that she told. That doesn't make any sense. You didn't create a system that will make it easy for her to come out and do the needful, and now she's gone on. And then everybody's now saying, I didn't know. You can't say that. Not in a place where you talk about spirituality. You cannot say that. That level of suffering is something that should touch any spirit. In fact, interacting with her, looking into her eyes, you should see something. If you are truly a person that concerns about other people, you are concerned about people. When you there's a way you will communicate, interact face to face with somebody. So someone that was coming to you that could lay hand on a person, you would know. You would pick it up. If you truly are spiritual, that is the truth. Let's continue.
By trusting God for him to change. The last one that taught me so much was the music producer who came to see me in the office 2 days ago to tell me his own experience, how he witnessed that the man slapped the wife in his music studio. And I said to him, you saw a man slap a woman in your presence and you left the man alone, and you are a man yourself. And he said before he could respond to the man, the woman, again in tears on her knees, begged him not to do anything, to leave him alone, and not even to do anything at all, and so on and so forth. So we have had these stories, and this is all the things that we got to know after she had passed. As a person and as a church, everyone who knows us know that we have 0-degree tolerance for domestic abuse and wife battery of any sort. If you ever listen to any of our relationship messages, there is a principle, a policy, and a rule we have, and that is, it is better to be alive without a marriage than to die because of marriage. We've said that over and over and over. I am sure that some of us would have listened to the clips of those messages.
The same thing. This is the organization that has supposedly had its members tutored, coached, mentored, or lectured on the need not to tolerate abuse. That is not acceptable, especially not in relationship, blah 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 blah. This probably was not the first time that music producer was seen or hearing about that kind of abuse, but now he witnessed one in front of him, that the man could do that right there in front of him, show that the man in private would do worse. That is the first thing that should just communicate itself to you in your brain. You go straight away and lodge a complaint about that individual. You do not give any hoot about whether you are in church or not, because that man, for him to do it in front of you in a place like that, that means he's doing worse in the home front. It's on the home front, and it's as simple as that. There's no excuse. Nobody kneeling down to beg me with. An abused person gets to a point where they are literally imprisoned by their inability to see reason, so they cannot think clearly. So even when they are begging you, they are not begging you in their own best interest. You need to understand that. I'm hoping this my reaction video, people will get it. This is not about protecting the image of your church. This is not about protecting your own image. This is about saving a life, because the abused person cannot think right. I am talking as a person who has been through abuse, and I'm telling you that I was even able to survive what I did. It was because I've told people the kind of martial arts background I have and the kind of mental stamina I've developed as an entrepreneur and a sportsman is what saved me, helped me to be able to claw my way out of the blindness I was in. A woman of her nature, who was even not physically so endowed in terms of being maybe a big person, man, would have just felt she was helpless and would have thought I'll pray to God to save me, and not understood that she could actually walk away. Somebody needed to help her to take that step. Even if you want to help a man to go to therapy, that would be while she's away from his abuse. Nobody did that, because they didn't have the proper training. I think it's time for us to begin to do some kind of foundational training in domestic violence identification and abuse, domestic violence abuse and violence, domestic violence identification, so to understand how to help people, to provide support for people on this. I think it's time we begin to do that, because if people don't get educated about how they should decide when to intervene, man, they're just going to be standing there while good people get destroyed and killed. It doesn't make sense for us to live like that. We really did this woman a disservice. Honestly, all these people coming out now with all the revelations have done nothing. In fact, they are actually discrediting their church at the same time. That's what they're doing. They have not helped us at all, and they're making themselves look very bad.
Not to do anything, to leave him alone, and not even to do anything at all, and so on and so forth. So we have had these stories, and this is all the things that we got to know after she had passed. As a person and as a church, everyone who knows us knows that we have 0-degree tolerance for domestic abuse and wife battery of any sort. If you ever listen to any of our relationship messages, there is a principle, a policy, and a rule we have, and that is, it is better to be alive without a marriage than to die because of marriage. We've said that over and over and over.
They've said that over and over and over, yet one of the most prominent members of your church insisted on staying in such a violently abusive relationship and pleaded with those who witnessed that violent abuse not to let you know. And you did not have systems in place. That's why I say I'm going to talk about leadership, to help you detect such. You should know that human beings are like that. That there may be some people, and you also, if you understand the nature of abuse, you should understand that sometimes an abused person will be so terrified of the abuser that they will not even understand that the threats the abuser is making are limited in terms of what can be effected on them when they are in public. So the abused person is so psychologically imprisoned that they cannot understand that they can be saved. So they feel helpless, and they'll keep appealing to even their abuser to stop abusing them, rather than report the abuser or get away from the abuser. So you had all these your rules, you had all these announcements you've made, you had all these messages you've preached, but the people did not internalize it in the way you probably intended. And therefore, the thing is, you didn't have checks and balance, you didn't have controls put in place, fail-safe devices, fail-safe systems to help you to detect and uncover such activities that was going on in the lives of your members. I mean, I just hope this will be a kind of a wake-up call for the church, not just this man's church, but just generally the church family, and they would begin to develop an active interest in helping members to find support when they need it, when they're experiencing abuse. I hope this will help the church to develop a very, very viral system, because right now what they have is literally dead. They don't even think of the psychological and emotional well-being of their members on this front. It's sad to even discover that such a thing could happen in a place where people are supposed to be connecting with the creator. Oh, it's a big shortcoming. Big one.
Now, this kind of time is a time where people heap all manner of blames on the church. And that is typical, because whatever goes wrong, anytime it is the first point of call is the church. I have seen people ask questions. Why should a wife abuser be a member of a church? Or how can somebody be so brutal and is a member of the church? That is not a question that that people who know scripture should ask. You know, the ark of Noah, the same ark that carried good animals, also had
I disagree.
Evil beasts.
There's nothing like evil beasts. There are no evil beasts. Those animals are exactly that. They are animals. In order for the lion to survive, it has to feed on some other prey. It is the nature of the world. There will be people. Look, we kill chickens. The chickens will view us as animal, as wicked, right? As evil. We kill goats. The goats which goat would like to have a knife put on its neck and cut? So we are definitely evil as far as the family of goats is concerned. But we just believe that goats are meant to be raised and used as meat. So we eat meat, and in order for us to eat meat, we've got to kill goat, kill cow, kill chicken. It's the way of the world. It's the way in which the Creator has made the world. The animals feed off one another. There's no evil animal. The snake is not evil. The snake is a snake. It was created. It has its own function in society, in the nature. So I disagree. What he said there is completely wrong. I don't know where he got that from. The ark, God would not have told Noah to take evil animals and save them. Why would God want evil animals to be saved? All the animals were his creations. None of them was evil. Nature abhors imbalance. There are some animals that will be eaten by other animals. Some other animals will eat other kinds of smaller animals. It is like that. We are eating most of these animals too. It is like that. That has nothing to do with evil or good. It's just about existence, survival. Okay, so that's then the other aspect having to do with the church being criticized, and you are being asked about whether or not why people should be in the church who are evil. Yes, why should they be there? Because if you look at the Bible, Jesus Christ himself, he spoke to the Pharisees and poured away their table, told them they were doing bad things in his house and all that. You should get out of his father's house. He was able to perceive the kind of people that did not belong there. In his interactions, he demonstrated an ability to see below the surface. That is what is expected for a person who is a preacher, who is a man of God, supposedly. And I'm not passing any judgment on anybody before you guys start coming to rain insults on my head. I don't even know how many people are going to watch this. It doesn't matter to me. I'm putting this on the record because I think somebody needs to say it. This is bad. The unwillingness to take responsibility is a narcissistic tendency, and I'm not using that word lightly. In fact, there is a paper I read on the internet, you may Google it, that said that many people who are in preaching posts, who have to preach, who have to run church organizations, have to or by nature kind of develop narcissistic tendencies. Please go and Google and find out the meaning of narcissism. You know, you've got to be like that, because you know, if the man doesn't even want to accept that there's anything that he has not done right. Come on. No, you have demonstrated a complete lack of comprehension of the severity of your shortcoming as a leader. This is the truth. I'm saying it without apology. One of the qualities of a good leader is ability to accept responsibility for your shortcomings. I, as a parent, there are ways in which I failed my kids that I accept, and I'm working hard to repair that. And then when you do that, because you are a human being, there's nobody that is infallible. Nobody that is perfect. So we acknowledge that you will make mistakes, but your willingness to accept your mistakes and then take action to correct them is what is most important. This is not acceptable. But again, who am I? I'm just an ordinary guy. I don't even go to church.
You know, Jesus Christ had the followership of what the Bible called the multitude. And for me, multitude means multiple attitudes. People with multiple inclinations. People with multiple tendencies. People with multiple behaviors. In fact, one of those that followed Jesus Christ was a thief who also sold him to death. He was called Judas Iscariot. Question is, how could somebody follow Jesus Christ, as perfect as Jesus was, as instructive as he was, as impactful as he was, and still be a thief and a murderer? That question is left for everybody.
But we also know, it is recorded in the Bible, that Jesus Christ foresaw that. Jesus Christ knew that that man would betray him. So that's what we're talking about. Perception of stuff like that in the spirit. The lady I said contributed to a post that I participated in yesterday, said the same thing. How could he not have the spirit of discernment? That's the word, discernment. How could he not have discerned that in the spirit? So please, this is like begging the issue.
And I can tell you the worst of it all. There was a man, a personality called Lucifer, who was in heaven and became Satan, the devil, under the nose of God in heaven, a place where there was no sin and could have been no sin at all. This guy became the inventor and originator of sin. How is it possible for somebody to become a devil from being an archangel right inside heaven? That is how possible it is for anybody to be anything while inside the church. Even the best of pastors or preachers or teachers in the world cannot change any man or woman who is unwilling.
We are not talking about changing a man or woman who is unwilling to change. We are talking about detecting the fact that somebody in your congregation is going through massive violence and abuse at the hands of a fellow member right under your nose. You cannot excuse this. You cannot explain it away. It is impossible. You cannot tell us you couldn't see it. And all these things about Lucifer, did Lucifer not get kicked out of heaven? Did this man get kicked out of the church? I mean, look at the parallels we're drawing here. You know, did Lucifer not get kicked out? He became a fallen angel because he was detected. He was unmasked. Therefore, God kicked him out of heaven. This is the understanding we have. I was a member of Student Christian Movement right into my 4th year in the University of Ibadan. I used to go to Love Feast and all of that. I have my reasons for withdrawing before I left the campus. You know, at the point they were calling my Student Christian Movement, they were calling it a Society of Courtship and Marriage. You can draw your inferences from why they were saying that. You know, so I saw certain things I didn't like and I just moved on. But the point I'm making is I come from a Christian home. I was raised in Christendom, and I'm telling you, you all know that what I'm saying is the truth. So why are we trying to beat about the bush here? God detected that Lucifer did wrong and kicked him out. Did you detect that this man was doing wrong? Not until he killed somebody did you not know that. Come on, man, you can't tell us that. So you maybe my advice would be, maybe Mr. Pastor needs to go and take his seat in his private room and do a heart-to-heart with God and find out where he broke off. You are not tapping from the spirit. As far as I'm concerned, if you were connected in the spirit, you would have picked up the vibes. That is it.
Changed. In case you feel frustrated at anything and you are airing your frustration here and there, is a transfer of frustration, a transfer of aggression. The church is not your place for transferring frustration and aggression. We are willing to help you. If you have so much bitterness, so much frustration, and so much distraction in your life, and you don't know where to vent it, but in situations like this, we can help you. We want to let you know we love you, and Jesus loves you. It is well with you, and it is well with your loved ones. For the family of the deceased, we pray for strength and help, and for the body of Christ generally, it is well with you. In Jesus' precious name. This is Dr. Pastor Paul Enenche, Senior Pastor, Dunamis International Gospel Center.
The church could not help one of his own. The church wants to help the outsiders who are asking questions of it. The church could not help one of his own that was going through pain and suffering while ministering to them and blessing them with her voice for years. And the church is offering still now, even in its failure, to help us. I don't have any issues with this gentleman. I don't even know him. Dr. Paul. I don't even know if he's ENENCHE'S or whatever. I don't know his name really. With all due respect, it's not intended to be a slur or anything. I just don't know him very well. But I felt so moved when I listened to his response. I had been waiting because I have some friends who are, in that area, and I said, okay, let's see what he's going to say. I was just holding back, and by the time he started speaking, I said, no, it's unacceptable. What do you mean? The church can help. Help who? The church couldn't help itself. The church made itself look very bad, and the church needs to repair that damage to its image. No, it's unacceptable. We want to let you know you want to let us know you love us. The only way to show that you love your members and us is by demonstrating the ability to protect them from themselves. Because it was not an outsider, an unbeliever that came and beat her up and killed her. Look, the abuse that woman is suffering, we have no way of knowing what would have triggered whatever the cancer or whatever they said she had, or aggravated it. We don't know we understand from some of the stories we've read. There was time he kicked her out of the car or pushed her out of the car. There was time he kicked her in the chest. Come on, man. This is somebody that already had whatever condition, probably didn't know before it was diagnosed. And then she was getting all kind of physical, emotional, psychological abuse. How would her body have been able to heal properly? And then with all of that, she had no place to go to get relief. She had nobody she would confide in. Why did she feel that way? Why didn't she feel she could confide in somebody that was in a position to take action to help her? The church failed. If the church loved her, the church would have given her an outlet. The church did not. I'm not saying the church is bad. I'm saying this church didn't do it right, and this church needs to accept that it needs to do better.
But he showed that he was beaten. Yes. So without further ado, I have some guests in the building today that we would also want to honor, but thank God that they are living, and they are people who have gone through and would want to share their story briefly. So first, they say ladies first. We have Mrs. Olaide Kayode-Omoshebi.
That's your name sounds very familiar. Where do I know that name from? Good morning.
Yes, that is my wife. We have Mr. Tayo Solagbade here.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
And we have Mr. Wale Ibiduni, who is Mr. Tayo's uncle, who came to give us some moral support.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us today.
Firstly, I would want to